Welcome Rich Scale Modelling. This is part 3 of the Star Wars AT-ST Scout Walker build. Now in part 2 I dealt with building up the cockpit, creating some molds for the diorama. In this part 3, I'll be dealing with the head of the Scout Walker, the guns, and a little bit more on the base if I have time. So these are the parts that I've done on part 2, so I'll be putting these together and then putting it on the actual body itself, which will be this part here. So let's get into it. So I'm going to put the back on first, just a little bit of cement. Doesn't need much. And careful how you place this. So these fans go at the bottom. Now I would assume that this will be quite difficult to fit. Oh no, it went on quite easily. That's a first for this kit. So that's the back on. For the face, put a little bit of cement here and here, and I've had some success when I've dry fitted this. It fitted perfectly, then it didn't fit at all, so I may have to jiggle this around a bit. It just slips in. There's 2 location points here on each side that it fits into. I'm going to put on a heavy clamp here. It looks like it's just popping out. Don't know whether the clamp will hold on this angle. And then I'll do the same on the side, I think, so it pops back into place. You hear that click, that means it's just popped in. Yeah. So I'll give that a little bit of time to dry. So it's been about an hour, so I'm going to take the clamps off. And yeah, that's okay. Bit of cleaning up to do there. Let's take my knife, take the bar off. Now, interestingly enough, it goes in there like that. Now, interestingly enough, there should be a guard that comes up over here by the looks of the movie Scout Walker, but BanDai doesn't have that on their kit. I was thinking about scratch building it, but I won't bother. So that's the first one, right? I'll go on to the second one. On this, I'm going to be painting the grids, so I'm using Tamiya's XF56 metallic grey just to paint the little grids inside the back unit. There's a couple of short sections to this top, but it says to build the back part first, so I'm just slipping this in. It fits really well, just push it in. And once it's on, it just slots on to the back, like so. Next to go on is the collar for the hatch. Again, you can't go wrong putting this on. It can only go in one way really. Just make sure you get the location points lined up. Next to go on is this guardrail, and I put it on now, but in the end I actually took it off. Managed to get it off before the glue is set. The reason why I took it off was because it was impeding on holding the other parts together. So don't put this part on just yet prior to building the rest of it. The instructions say put on, but don't put on just yet. The top just pops on. It was a little bit tight. I would have liked this top to be hinged so you were able to lift it up, but it's not. It becomes one solid unit. So that's it. Took a little bit of wiggling around to get it in, but I did manage it. But it was this point then I realised that the guardrail had to come off. Once the guardrail was off, it was easier to pop the top part into position. Still needed a little bit of pressure to place it in, but it was a lot easier. Next to go on was the armour cheeks or side armour panels going on. They just slotted in easy enough, and it was the same with the bigger piece as well. Just for the location points. It's a little bit tricky to get them lined up because of the shape of the part. Once you get it lined up, it just pushes in. Next is the base for the weapons. The two main parts to this. It says fit the bottom part, then the top part on the model, but you can fit both together like that before attaching it to the main unit. You just have to make sure that the smaller part is facing the right direction. Well, it would appear that I forgot to put the bottom on. I completely missed it at this stage. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So, we shall assemble it now, and hopefully I can get it to fit, because everything else has gone on. And I've looked at the instructions, and here's me priding myself on looking at the instructions very carefully. I completely missed this bit out. Now, look at the instructions, you were meant to do them in a certain order, but that just might be concerning the unit here. So, let's see if we can get it in. It's meant to go here. So, there's location points in there. Let's put some glue in. I'm not going to put a great deal in. Okay. Well, you never need to put a lot in anyway, but this will be tricky. Just a bit more cleaning up. Oh yeah, it's going in. So I'm just going to put glue around the seams now. And I should put it under some F-clamps to keep it in place. Yeah, that should fit in there. Yep. Well, I got away with that, I think. So I'll have to leave that quite a time for it to dry. And it's a good job I took that part off before it set, because I realised that I had to put other little bits and pieces on. So it was better to take it off than put it on at the end. That's what I'll do. So I'm going to let that dry. So while this is drying, I'm going to be sealing up these. But before I get on to that, as I thought, I don't mind you showing you all my mistakes. Mistakes do happen. I tend to make a few, quite a lot. And I have a tendency just to glance at instructions, hence why I made this mistake. And I show them because hopefully you can learn from them, you know. So that is why I leave them in. I know a lot of videos, they're all pristine and everything looks perfect. Well, modelling doesn't go like that. Model building doesn't go like that. There's often mistakes being made. So this is why I keep them in. So anyway, on to this. So this is the molds, the casts I made, and these represent rocks and whatever. So I'm just taking off the plastic wrap. Don't worry if you can't get it all off. There'll be bits and little nooks and crannies that are embedded into the mould. So we've got this, and what I've got here is PVA glue. So just normal white glue, PVA. Take my brush, dip it in, and then I'm just going to paint over the piece. Now what this does, this seals it in, so no more moisture can get in. It locks it in, it becomes rock solid and hard, and it enables for painting. If you didn't do this, when you paint, you'll find that your paint will crack and disappear into the plaster Paris, which is no good really. You don't want that at all, so you want to put a liberal coat on, like so. So I'm going to be doing up with all of them. I've got all the other bits and pieces in this bag here that I'll be doing, so I'll get on with that. So that's them sealed now, as you can see, all nicely laid out, starting to look like boulders and bricks and that. So once that's all dry, I can think about painting them. So it's back to the head, and it's time to put on the remaining little hoses and pipes that I painted earlier in part 1. So they just push on into the location points. These go fairly straightforward. There's no problems with these ones. No need to bend the pipe around or anything. And just to remind you, I painted these in Revel Aquacolor 90s Silver. As I said, I done it in part 1, I think it was. So easy enough to assemble and put in. Next to the shields for the eyes, so you have two options here. You can have them open or closed. I'm having mine open, so make sure you pick the right part, whatever one you're deciding to do. So next is the top hatch, and there's, again like the eyes, there's two parts you can use for this. One open and one closed. I actually took the wrong one off of the first, as you can see next to my knife there. As I said, it depends which one you want. I'm having mine closed, so I'm just dry fitting it first of all. So I just put it on, but I decided to take it back off. It's a little bit gluey yet, so I can't handle it too much. And the reason why I've taken it back off is I don't want it to be in its open position, the top lid. I want it to be closed. But I also want to pop it open now and again, just to have a look inside of. You can see the pilot and everything through the windows. But it'd be nice to look inside now and again and see the paintwork. So I'm just going to let this glue dry a bit, and I shall reinsert the guard rail. And once that's on and the glue's dried, I'll just pop that back on without gluing it. So that's the head practically done. Got the weapon system now to build up on it. Onto the weapon system then. Now I'll just point out the unit is actually not together, the head and the body. I've just placed it on top there for ease to see what it was going to look like. Now this weapon system, it can be a little tricky to do, and even though following the instructions, it should say it's still tricky to do. The first part's easy enough. It's a couple of little sub-assemblies that you do. You insert the gun into two halves and close the halves together, and you got the first part of the gun. I'm painting the tips of the gun XF56 metallic grey. Now really technically they should just be one solid grey colour, but I just like to add a little bit of contrast into them. Oh, I should have pointed out as well, this is the chin gun, the front gun as well, the first one I'm doing. And just marrying up the two halves now. It can be free moving. I've chosen to have it free moving, So just be aware of your location points and where you're going to be putting the cement. So for me, once it was assembled, I just checked to see where it is indeed free moving. I would advise not to install the gun with its mount straight away. Install the mount first inside the chain gun area, because it's so tight you need a bit of force to put on and you don't want to damage your gun. So put the mount in, then put the actual gun in. For the main sight gun, I found this part quite difficult to do actually. There's a few sub-assembly parts to do. First of all, you have the main gun, which is a gun with two barrels, a center unit, then a third gun, and it's held with a bracket and a cap. Now the main gun going into the middle section, that was relatively straightforward. A little bit tricky because it's small and I've got fat sausage fingers, you know, but I got that part in. The main issue I had was the single gun, the third gun at the back. Now the instructions say stick it on the location point, and indeed there is a recess in the gun for you to do that. But at the back of that there's a three-way bracket that holds onto it, and I just could not get it to fit how the illustration goes on the instructions. So in the end, I had to take it off, put it back on, take it off. It was starting to look messy because of the glue and that, but I got it into a position that I was happy with. Not necessarily how the instructions are asking you to put it in, but I was happy with it. So the back cap goes on, then there's a shield plating, which was easy enough to put on the shield plating. That just pushes through a little hole, but you have to be careful not to move what you've already assembled, even though when it's dry you got a danger of it snapping. So as you can see, I'm trying to fit it now, and as I say, I'm having loads of problems with it. Once I finally got it assembled and it was dry, I was able to fit it to the head unit. Now I found it easier to put this in with a pair of tweezers, just because again I didn't want to push onto the guard and destroy what I made up. So I just took it by the base of the stem and pushed it in like that. It worked. I got it in. Didn't use any glue here because I wanted them to move, but to be honest with you, I don't think they're going to move anyway, because the fight is so tight and the guns are so fragile. You don't want to put any pressure on them trying to move them. On the opposite side is a cannon, and that's really easy to assemble. There's just 4 parts, 3 that push in to align into the central part, and then a cap which then gets inserted into the side of the head. So nothing major whatsoever on that one. In fact, through the whole build, it was only that gun, the previous gun, that I had a major problem with. Once it was assembled and dried, it was just time to push it in, and it went in perfectly. You can see that just going in. And now it's time to paint. So I'm using XF19 Sky Grey. Again, that's the predominant colour of the entire walker. Then I moved on to XF20 Medium Grey for the contrast colours, and I just painted in where I thought we would stand out better. So the back fans, for instance, I painted in that colour, a couple of panel lines and so forth as well. And all I'm doing is just highlighting the details as I go around the unit. So just small amounts where I think I can do with a little contrast colour. Moving on to XF56 Metallic Grey for the vents. And just going over some gun barrels and that before I'm happy with it. There's some moulded pipework inside the unit, so I'm painting that in Rebel 90 silver, like I did with the other hoses. As I'm doing it, you can just start seeing the unit coming to life now. When the paint's all dry, it's on to weathering, so I'm using Tamiya's Weather Master Powder again, and this is the Master Powder C and the gunmetal element, and I'm just highlighting over rivets and exposed areas. And then I'm moving on to the burnt orange, and I'm using this again to highlight colours and to show wear and damage. So this is just a light coat. You really have to master this technique to do it, but you just put on a little bit, then blend it in. Just put tiny amounts on at a time. So once I put it on, I take another brush sharpener, this one a larger one, and then start rubbing it in into the surface to blend it with the other paint colours. So I'll just put it on where I think there may be damage or wear and tear on the vehicle. There's no hard set rule how to do this and where to put it, just what feels natural to you. Next is Weather Master E, and first of all I'm taking the grey component and going over the orangey yellow bits that I've done, the burnt red, a very light coat in here, just to dull down any sharp contrast colours, and then to further highlight those colours that I put in the burnt red and the gunmetal. I'm using the yellow on the E series to bring it all back up into life. Again, tiny amounts, just a little bit on, then rub a lot of it off but blend it all in. So now I'm switching again to Weather Master B, and first of all I'm using the suit component here, that's the middle one, and I'm going to try and recreate a blast point. So first of all I'm just putting a dot of soot where I want a blast point to be. You don't want a perfect circle, you want a splodge. So I'm going on to Weather Master E, and I'm using the green component now, and I'm going around the edges of the soot mark using a fine brush sharpener, just putting a little bit of green around it, and just press your brush into the mark until you're happy with it. And then it's on to C, and using the burnt red now, and I'm going over the green a little bit so it's all overlapping, and it's going in from the center a little bit to the outside. So again, tiny amounts I'm putting on here, just blending it in as I go along, just being careful not to overdo it. So it doesn't take much, just a little bits at a time, as I keep on saying. I won't keep on emphasizing that. And then it's onto the yellow on the E series, and then I'm putting in little lines, imagine like a starburst, and I'm using the edge, the very fine tip edge of the brush sharpener, and I'm just starting at the center, then flicking the brush out so it has a deep impression at the center and comes out at the edge in a faded manner to represent a burst of energy. Once that's all on, I take another brush sharpener, a clean one, and just gently go over it and blend all the colours in, and hopefully the end result is a blaster point. Again, you just have to try these things and see if they work for yourself. It could be a little bit difficult to master. If you do make a mistake, you think it's too much, hence why I'm using the grey, just going over little points to make sure I'm happy with it. Well, this video ran a little bit longer than I would have liked, so I'm going to end it here. It's a good place to stop anyway. If you liked this, why don't you check out my other videos, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button if you wish. But for now, I'll leave you with the final shot of the blast point. Bye bye.